a Christian minister defends the American family against socialistic medicine. Prescription for disaster.
My overall opinion of the Clinton health plan is one of great concern. My major concern is that they're adding an extra layer of bureaucracy. They're looking at increasing the cost of health care, and even though they say they're looking at ways to reduce the cost of health care through managed care programs, that probably will have very little effect, technically and over the next 5 to 10 years.
Having come down here from Canada and lived under the socialized health care plan in Canada and see what it has done to the country, I say that it could be the final blow to push America into bankruptcy.
The definition of treatment by a bureaucrat, particularly when a physician feels that it's necessary, not for his egotistical feelings, but for the care of the patient, which is his primary responsibility, is appalling. To have a medically indicated opinion and a medically indicated treatment refused by a bureaucrat, and then the responsibility laid at the feet of the physician, is complete anathema to the way that Americans expect their health care to be delivered.
Under the Clinton health care plan, there will not be any option to opt out of the system. You must belong to the system. It'll be compulsory, and I understand that there'll be penalties involved if you do not participate in the system.
This year in Canada, in the province of Ontario, on December 10th, the hospitals in Toronto were closed except for emergency care or urgent care. Elective medical care was completely suspended from December 10th through the first of the year. The reason for that was lack of funds.
On the following program, you will learn how Bill and Hillary Clinton's health care plan promoting socialized medicine in America, this bill, H.R. 3600, will affect you and your family. Here are just a few items that our investigation uncovered concerning this controversial plan. Are you aware that it will be against the law to go outside the Clintons' health care insurance plan to buy your own private insurance? Did you know that the government, not you or your doctor, the government will determine what medical services are necessary for your treatment? I'm sure you did not read this in your newspapers. Under H.R. 3600, it will be against the law to obtain a doctor of your choice, even if he or she has been your doctor for many years, if that doctor is outside your government-approved region. How about this one? The government will actually ration health care according to, listen to this, global budget constraints. For instance, last year in Canada, the government ran over budget for health care. Therefore, many clinics were shut down. Mothers were told they should not bring their children into a clinic if they have a fever, only if they are convulsing. Our investigation further uncovered longer than usual waiting periods for even the most serious operations. Many patients died while waiting to receive their treatment. Under Hillary's H.R. 3600, it will also be against the law to pay your doctor extra money for any services not covered by Bill and Hillary's plan. Did you hear anyone on the network news tell you that you will have to wait your turn for an operation, even if you and your doctor feel it is life-threatening? If the government bureaucrat in your region disagrees with your doctor, the government bureaucrat overrules. Here's one that makes my blood boil. Bill and Hillary's plan includes funding abortion on demand. This means that your tax dollars and mine will be used to fund abortions even if you are against abortion for religious reasons. Wow. Do you know that under H.R. 3600, unlimited coverage means that those who contract AIDS through immoral homosexual lifestyles or through dirty needles and drug abuse will receive health care without any penalty for their abusive lifestyles, and you and I will be paying for their treatment with our tax dollars. And listen to this. Government officials like the president, senators and congressmen, their families, will not be required to be a part of this plan until 1998, and possibly never. Here it is, the Health Security Act, H.R. 3600, Bill and Hillary's Socialized Medicine Plan for America. All 1,364 pages. In the next few weeks and months, your congressmen and senators and mine will be considering voting Bill and Hillary's health care plan into law. Once it becomes law, there'll be no turning back. America will have entered socialism. America's health care system as we know it today will never again be the same. As Chancellor of Liberty University and pastor of Thomas Road Baptist Church here in Lynchburg, Virginia, just one person, I wanted to know how Hillary's plan would affect our ministry if it is enacted. I saw very little discussion about the specifics of this plan on television, unless, of course, it was favorable. So I obtained this copy of the bill and read it for myself, every one of the 1,364 pages. Boring, but oh, how dangerous. What I saw shocked me and angered me. Why wasn't there more public discussion and debate on the specifics of Hillary's health care plan on television and in the newspapers? Was there a liberal media cover-up on the negative aspects of the Clinton plan? I believe that there is a cover-up. I believe that the liberal media wants you and me to see socialized medicine instituted in America in a very favorable light, especially because this plan would institute abortion on demand paid for by your tax dollars and mine, and a lot of other reprehensible things. Over and over again, I have heard Bill and Hillary applaud the Canadian health care plan. The liberals in the news media have also exalted that model plan north of our border, the Canadian health care plan. Well, on this video, you will hear the testimonies of people who have lived first in Canada and then moved to America. People who can accurately compare the two programs.
10 years ago, in my hometown in Canada, we built a brand new hospital, state-of-the-art, and today they have just closed the third wing of that hospital because they are no longer able to afford to keep the hospital operating, and so they're downsizing the system. And so when you want to go for treatment, for surgery, you wait for weeks and sometimes months to get into a hospital in Canada. I was in Canada in October, and I met the wife of a good friend of mine, Martha Stock, and I said to Martha, "How is Jürgen?" Jürgen owned a toy factory in Canada and made wooden toys. They were a German family, and they had been very successful. She said, "Tom, Jürgen is dead." And I said, "I'm sorry, Martha." I said, "What happened?" And she said he needed a bypass operation, and he was on a waiting list in Canada, and we knew it was fairly serious, and so we tried to get him. We knew he was going to wait for some time to get into a hospital in Canada, so we were trying to get him into a hospital in Britain or in the United States, and he died before we could get him into a hospital to have open heart surgery. And so she was a very bitter woman, to say the least. She says, "What good is our healthcare system?" And this happens, I mean, this is just one instance. This happens hundreds of times every week in Canada where people die because they cannot get treatment.
The Canadian healthcare system is chronically underfunded. Patients have very long waits. The percentage of patients who die waiting for coronary artery bypass surgery in Canada is 10 times the percentage of patients in the United States where there are not waits for those kind of services. The Canadian system is looking for an alternative, and that is privatizing the healthcare system.
According to the Washington, D.C.-based Blackwell Corporation, the average waiting period for Canadian patients to see a specialist in internal medicine is 6.4 weeks. Neurosurgery, 9 weeks. Urology, 10.7 weeks. Gynecology, 13.7 weeks. Orthopedics, 20.9 weeks.
Yeah, I was born in Saskatchewan, Canada, Mooseland to be exact, and grew up on a grain farm out there. My father had a lot of wheat acreage, and grew up in a family of 5. I was the oldest of 5. My sister was next to me in age, and we of course went to school together. And once I got married, well, she was usually part of my family's immediate activities, such as our son's graduation, our daughter's graduation. But for her to have contracted amyloidosis in 1990 and then to have died of the disease in 1993 under the Canadian health system because they couldn't get her in the hospital in time and give her proper medical care in time was certainly a shock. And the irony is that they had wanted to send her here to the Americas, to Rochester Mayo Clinic, to get the proper care, but before they could get her here while she was gone.
Is this the kind of health care we want in America? The Canadian taxes are overwhelming and the cost of living is unbearable. The waiting lines for major medical treatment are enormous. In August 1990, the Quebec Premier chartered a plane at his own expense and flew to Washington, D.C. for consultation at the National Cancer Institute in Bethesda after he learned he had melanoma, a potentially fatal form of skin cancer. The following November, the Premier returned to the U.S. for an operation. He came to America because today we have the best quality health care in the world. In Canada, in 1990, 15 patients on a waiting list for cardiac surgery died before they could get their operations. That waiting list is typically 700 to 800 patients long. For elective procedures like hip replacement, the waiting list can be even longer, up to 1,300 patients in some instances. Nationwide, Canada is believed to have 250,000 people waiting for surgery. Can this happen in America? You bet it can. And those 250,000 Canadians awaiting surgery would translate numerically to 2.5 million Americans awaiting surgery under the same plan. The President and his wife Hillary have often cited the Canadian plan as their model, an excellent model, they say. Many aspects of their plan actually are similar to the Canadian plan. But let me ask you this, where are the critics of the Clinton plan? Why do we not hear the voices of opposition on the evening news nightly?
If we Americans want to understand what's behind the Hillary and Bill Clinton medical plan, we need to come to understand the politics behind it. There is no healthcare crisis in America. There are problems in our healthcare system, granted, but nothing of a magnitude to result in the federal government taking over the whole system. Bill and Hillary Clinton have a political objective, frankly, that has nothing to do with healthcare, and that is to expand the coverage of the federal government to include a never-ending increase in the people that are directly involved and dependent on the federal government for their life. In this instance, the issue they're using to expand socialism is health care.
What this is all about is realignment of the middle-class family. It is to make middle-class family dependent on the Democratic Party for their health benefits in the standard benefit package.
But there's so many things in President Clinton's bill that most people aren't aware of. I think the more they learn about it, the more they will be opposed to it.
Her disposition towards respect for human life, or lack of respect for human life, is not uncharacteristic with the fact that she's prepared to ration care, deny services to children who don't meet her certain standards of quality of life, to simply push abortion down the throats of sensitive-minded, morally conscious people who feel like that is taking innocent life. All of this stuff reflects the personality of the First Lady. And so you can say that this bill has a certain personality unto itself.
Bill and Hillary Clinton have stated that their plan will reduce the present cost of health care by reducing paperwork and cutting bureaucracy. What a joke. Clinton stated that Hillary's plan will reduce the deficit by over $50 billion. However, the democratically controlled Congressional Budget Office reported that the Clinton plan would increase the deficit by $75 billion, and you probably can multiply that by 2 or 3. It is reported that Clinton's plan would add 50,000 government workers and will create at least 60 new bureaucracies and programs. One expert in Washington has declared that this health care program will become the world's largest bureaucracy and absolutely irreversible. This chart shows how complex this government-managed health care plan will be. You visit your doctor, but it will be against the law for you to pay him directly, even if you have the money in your pocket. Your doctor's payment must pass through this entangled bureaucratic mess before he ever sees a penny. How can this ever be cheaper than the way we do it now?
One of the features of the plan that really hasn't received a lot of attention is that it authorizes the federal government, now get this, to impose a state income tax on those states that are viewed by the bureaucrats to be undertaxing their citizens. If you live in Texas or Nevada or the state of Washington, other states of the Union that don't have a state income tax, are you aware of this?
If we ever enter the world of government health care in the United States, there's no way that we can possibly return to an insurance-based system after that. Once we've taken that large step, once we've added the bureaucracy, as you know, the bureaucracies tend to add to themselves, and it would be extremely difficult to get that bureaucracy to change or to fade out in favor of an insurance system sometime in the future.
I think the most crying example, or the most obvious example of what a completely government-controlled healthcare system can do is the Veterans Administration. The Veterans Administration treats a large number of people who serve their country. They treat them for varying fees, most of them of which below these veterans could obtain those services for on the private healthcare market. But what they sacrifice for that is a tremendous amount of ability to choose. Their doctor is whatever doctor the system chooses for them. Their treatment plans are based on what's convenient for the system. Walk through any VA hospital in the country and you will find a line of 50 to 60 people waiting to have their prescriptions filled, because that's the place where they can get their prescription filled. Every clinic in the VA system to see sick patients, be it a cardiology clinic, be it a surgery clinic, be it a dermatology clinic, has waiting rooms that are crammed full with no effort at efficiency.
One of the big concerns with government-employed physicians is the fact that there's a lot of bureaucracy involved in this. In Russia, where I was in September, the physicians were poorly paid and hardly had enough money to pursue any continuing educational courses to keep their education up. They didn't have the books to keep themselves up, or journals, and that was very frustrating. In England, where I spent some time, I found the physicians had a good deal of time off, which was nice. They had more time off than I did and laughed that I had a hard time getting my 2 weeks together to go over. But I found it very frustrating because they had a job, a 9-to-5 job, rather than a profession. And I think that's very important, and we need to be sure that we don't turn medicine into a 9-to-5 job, but that it continues to be a profession where people seek to serve their patients.
I do believe that we have the best healthcare system in the world, without question. Young doctors from all over the world come here to train. The most wealthy and most sophisticated people from all over the world come here when they become very ill, if they can. So that it's very clear that we have a lot here to protect. And the concern that I have is that in our zeal to fix the faults that we do have, we'll undermine the very nature of the system that has made it as good as it is. I do think there are problems, and I do think it's important to address these. Complete overhauling of the system, especially one that's focused in Washington and trickles down to us, I don't think will work very well, and B, I don't think is needed.
I think that government has never shown that they can do something more efficiently than the private sector. That's not saying what the private sector does is always the best or the right thing to do, but eventually the solution will be found within the private sector. I think government mandating care to be done a certain way is going to be an eventual disaster for our healthcare system. And a system that currently thrives on innovation, thrives on looking for new medicines, new ways to do things, and is admired around the world, will just slide back into the mediocrity that will inherently happen in this area.
Whether or not the present health care system that we have in this country needs to be totally revamped, I would certainly have to say no. It does not. I think there's many, many good things about the health care that we offer in this country. The cost, I think, certainly is the big issue in the availability of that care. I think we can address those issues in such a way that we don't have to create more bureaucracy and attempt to change things in the plan that probably are good.
I think the quality of health care will come tumbling down, because ultimately you've got the president that's promising a very expensive list of benefits. He doesn't have near enough money coming in to pay for it. And so these alliances will have to regulate prices, and that means they'll roll back the price. And some people say, that's great. Well, price controls don't work. Especially they don't work unless they also control the number of times that you see the doctor or see the hospital. And that means rationing of care. And the people who will be hit probably first and foremost in rationing of care will be the elderly. They won't be able to receive the MRI when it's needed. They won't be able to receive the bypass surgery. Ultimately, if the government, and President Clinton has global budgets in his package, when that money is out, when they start running out of money, they're going to tell the hospitals, you can only do so many MRIs, you can only do so many CAT scans, you can only do so many bypass surgeries or prostate surgeries or whatever. And so I'm afraid that the entire American population will be punished, but most of all the elderly, because they are the persons who are in most need of medical care. And you're going to have government bureaucrats that will be saying, no, we're out of money, or we've had the limit on these operations for this month, you'll have to wait. And unfortunately, a lot of seniors won't be able to wait, and it could be a deadly decision.
In 1965, it was estimated by the federal government that brought us Medicare that by 1990, the cost to the federal government of Medicare in 1990 would be $12 billion. You know how much it was? It was $107 billion. Now that estimate is off by a factor of almost tenfold. Similarly, the estimates of this current Clinton health care plan are off by, nobody knows what it will entail, and frankly, the people that have come forward with this plan, they've never concerned themselves with where the money is coming from. To them, it's power.
Let's take a look at some of the controversial aspects of this bill, the bill called H.R. 3600, the Health Security Act. On page 224, we find out that the law will prevent you from going outside the system to buy basic health insurance coverage, which you think is better, even though you have already paid the mandatory government premium. On pages 90 and 91 of this book, I find out that the bill guarantees you a package of medical services, but you cannot have them unless they are deemed necessary and appropriate by government bureaucrats of the National Health Board, the world's largest bureaucracy. In other words, the government will determine what medical services are necessary for you, your family, for your treatment. You or your doctor will have no voice in it. On page 256, you will begin reading about the 7-member National Review Board, which shall be appointed by President Clinton. It is useful to think of this presidentially appointed 7-member group as the Supreme Court of health care. They can make or review every major decision in the health care system. The board will be the final judge of who gets what health care, at what cost, and under what conditions. They will decide, not you, not your doctor, they will decide how much the nation can spend on health care beginning in 1996. And remember, all 7 members will be appointed by President Clinton and, of course, Hillary. We're talking about a president who is pro-abortion. We're talking about a president and his wife who believe abortion on demand is good. We're talking about a president and his wife who are supporters of homosexual and lesbian special rights and privileges, and a past supporter of socialistic programs of all kinds around the world, most of which are now bankrupt and out of existence, including the old Soviet Union. On pages 6, 14, 145, 146, 147, 845 through 858, I was shocked to find that Big Brother will be watching. You and I will be given a card, a government-issued ID that identifies your health plan, your family health plan, your medical records, and that of your family. And this card could also access a national electronic data network which could hold any relevant patient information. Despite the plan's safeguards on privacy, the card creates ample opportunity for government tracking and the invasion of individual and family privacy, just like they did in Russia and now do in Cuba and China and Eastern Europe in many cases. On page 236, we find that it will be against the law to pay your doctor directly for any services. He must be paid only through the plan. This means if you are put on a waiting list, you cannot pay to get your treatment sooner. You must wait your turn, even if it results in further deterioration of your medical problem. On page 15, the law will make you get health care through your alliance. You must enroll in one of the limited number of health plans offered by the regional alliance where you live. And then on pages 144, 145, 146, if you fail to enroll, or the plan you choose is oversubscribed, alliance officials will assign you to one of their choosing. In other words, you can get stuck with a plan that you do not like. On pages 113, 137, doctors beware. Automatic, mandatory, non-discretionary reductions in payments to doctors, nurses, and hospitals will be implemented to assure, I'm quoting, that expenditures will not exceed budget, end quote. In Canada, doctors suffer a yearly salary reduction. Let me say that for you again. A yearly salary reduction in Canada because of shortfalls in the health care budget, which you can bet your life will occur right here in the U.S. under Clinton's health care plan. And by the way, staying with the doctor you now use will be very difficult. I appreciate my family doctor. He's been with us for many, many years. But you and I will not be choosing our family doctor under this plan. What most of us call fee for service, that is, choose your own doctor insurance, will be difficult to buy under the Clinton plan and eventually will be unavailable, period, according to the experts. On pages 134 and 236, government alliance officials post a schedule of fees, and it is illegal for doctors to charge more. This will cause many excellent doctors to leave the profession, I believe, and it will certainly discourage bright young students from entering the medical profession. Doctors will not be able to decide on giving treatment. Initially, your symptoms and medical history must be reported to a nurse or clerk seated at a computer terminal in hopes for an authorization to proceed with tests and treatment. How ridiculous. On pages 509, 514, and 515, you'll get more primary care than high-tech medicine, and that's not good news. People with heart disease, for example, will suffer. As a longer-term strategy to limit such care, the Clinton bill seizes control of medical education and requires that by 1998, no more than 45% of young doctors be permitted to go on to advanced training in a specialty. Specialty programs at leading medical schools will be downsized. Doctors in training will be assigned to the coveted specialty programs based partially on race and ethnicity. Depending on how underrepresented each racial or ethnic group is in the field of medicine in general and in the various medical specialties, they'll get these choice appointments.
The government involvement in the determination of specialty choice by graduates in medical education, doctors who are choosing a specialty in which they want to practice, is, as with most government regulations in education, doomed to failure. People practice the specialty which they are personally most suited. Surgeons are different from cardiologists, are different from radiologists. They tend to gravitate to the specialty to which they're most suited. Economics also is a factor. If a certain specialty has a better economic lifestyle than another specialty, and the person has a choice between the two, they will choose the one, naturally, which has a better reimbursement for them and for their families. What the government intrusion does is it falsely directs doctors into specialties which they do not choose. The market is already dealing with that. Primary care doctors are at a premium. Primary care doctors' compensations and incomes are increasing, specialist incomes are decreasing. So the natural forces are that less people will go into specialties because the demand will be less and the reimbursement will be less. And that is the natural way of the marketplace solving the problems. The second point of the governmental intrusion is that the government also retains the capacity in this health care bill to only allow people to go into specialties with regard to whether or not their particular race, their particular persuasion, their particular religion are adequately represented in that specialty currently. This is social engineering in its most blatant form and goes against almost every person's idea of why they would go into medicine, not so they could be part of a quota in their specialty.
Starting on page 303, by law, employers with 75 or more employees in America will pay a specified portion of the health care premium of its employees, which, depending on the size of the company, could be as much as 7.9% of payroll. Many small businesses will be unable to bear the payroll tax and will be forced to either reduce payrolls or even close the business as a result. On pages 32 to 64, the plan also covers certain services generally considered beyond the realm of historical medical necessity, such as family planning services, including abortion on demand for a $10 co-payment, alcohol and drug rehabilitation, stress management, and sex education in our schools, including school-based clinics which distribute condoms right in the public schools. Now imagine your tax dollars and mine supporting this garbage. Abortion on demand, condom distribution, and what's worse, all state laws presently limiting abortion will be superseded and outlawed by this bill if this bill right here becomes law. Ultimately, your tax dollars will be subsidizing health care for those who abuse their bodies by smoking, by drinking, by practicing homosexuality, by drug abuse, etc. They'll all be covered by the same Clinton plan with your dollars in mind. There'll be no reward for living healthily. I try to live by certain rules. I don't smoke or drink, and I don't live immorally, and most of you watching this program are saying, amen, I do the same. But we'll pay the price for those who violate all the rules of health, hygiene, and decency. You know, if a change in public education was being considered in America, I'm sure Hillary Clinton would have consulted the people who administer education, the school teachers. Yet Hillary ignored what the doctors and the hospital administrators, all the health care experts had to say. They were not even allowed to participate in the formation of her government-controlled health care plan.
Do I have faith in the government to manage health care after the job that they've done with welfare? I don't think I need to answer that question. I think that that's an obvious statement of fact and an extreme problem for the healthcare community.
Basically, the way I feel about Clinton's health care plan is it's really not good for the country or for patients or for the practitioner. There are a lot of problems with it and a lot of things that need to be worked out.
My concern is very simple, that here is politicians trying to change a healthcare system that basically the healthcare providers should be changing.
If we look historically at what government has taken over from the private sector, they've always done a worse job, be it the airline industry, be it anything. And I can't see them doing any better with health industry, particularly since none of them have any background in health.
If you create a healthcare plan designed by economists, you can imagine what the end product's going to be. It's going to be one that is going to shortchange some healthcare ideas. It's going to be one that does not take into account what it's like to be down in the trenches, taking care of people when they're ill, but dealing with real problems. And real problems including patient responsibility, physician responsibility, the interaction of the two.
Just as it did in Canada and Great Britain, government-controlled health care will most certainly lower the quality of care we now receive here in the United States. Listen to the comments of a mother who experienced the negligence and waste of the health care system in England. And then comments from a doctor who understands the negative results of socialized medicine in Great Britain.
I've lived in England and Canada and the United States, and I've been under the medical healthcare system of all three countries. And in my opinion, there is nothing to beat the superiority of the American system. I remember when I was having my first child in England in the national healthcare system, I was in the hospital for over 3 weeks, in fact almost a month. And so I could see firsthand the daily abuse within the system. I mean, people thought it was their total right to have hotel accommodation. I heard stories, horror stories of people coming in, what they demanded, what they wanted. It was appalling. My fear is that if Hillary Clinton's medical health care plan goes through, it'll be devastating for America. It will decline into what I experienced with the British national health care system. I've got many devastating stories of friends and family who've been involved in the English healthcare system. In fact, my uncle waited for 2 years for an operation until he got so sick that he had to go to private care in the end to be looked after. You know, while I'm really grateful for the English healthcare system, I mean in the sense that we all have healthcare, but the tragedy is that it has really lowered the standard of healthcare. There is just nothing that we can get to quickly. We have to wait for things. The doctors are frustrated, the patients are frustrated, and there is nothing, believe me, that beats coming to America and being able to have such quality care at such speedy time.
20 to 35% of people in England already have their own health insurance and can seek health care outside the national health, and do, and that is a thriving industry. It is only thriving because of the abysmal failure of the ability of the government to provide national health by taking all the incentive out of practicing medicine for all the healthcare providers. Every country in the world has experimented with some kind of socialized medicine. Every country in the world has gotten to the point where they are looking for some alternative because this has failed. It's ironic that the United States, which has the best healthcare system in the world, is turning in the opposite direction.
I am told by insiders in Washington that this Clinton health plan promises prohibitive fines and sanctions for doctors who give what they call too much care. Presumably, even if that care means saving a patient's life. Most doctors today do not hesitate to order unorthodox treatment for patients when they think it is in the best interest of the patient. But those doctors may feel differently about prescribing aggressive or unorthodox care if the doctors know that the government and the local health alliance may force them to pay back any costs of care outside the, quote, accepted protocol, end quote. Again, it is you and I, the patients, who will pay for this bureaucratic monster. We'll pay not only financially, but we may pay with our lives, and our children may do the same. Is this what you want? Is this what I want for ourselves, for our families? Today in America, any person, rich or poor, can walk into a general hospital and get the treatment they need. Children can get all the shots they need, any child, no matter how poor. We don't have to wait weeks for an operation or for any other medical treatment. It's all a myth that health care is not available to the poor. There are no restrictions today, rich or poor, on the treatment you and your doctor feel that you need and the fact that you can get it. But if Hillary Clinton's National Health Security Act is made law, God forbid, America's quality of health care will suffer, and this is the tragic part, we can never go back to the way it was.
The heavy hand of government says you must participate, you must be in this alliance, you must buy from the government and buy what is allowed under this structure. It's a very heavy-handed, socialistic, I would say, government takeover of the healthcare industry.
People often ask me, what can I, as one person, do to stop this terrible thing? The nationalizing of the healthcare industry is awful. Socialized medicine is horrible. History proves that. Bill and Hillary are wrong, but the media and a liberal Congress may jam it down the throats of the American people unless you do what you can do. Now here's what you can do as one person. I want you to show the next several minutes of this tape to your pastor, your Sunday school teacher, maybe your Sunday school class, maybe your entire church or neighborhood, and show it over and over again and get everyone with pencil in hand to write down the 900 number on the screen and place their names on petitions that can stop Bill and Hillary in their tracks. That's what you can do. Now, here's what I want you to show to your circle of friends. If you want to let Bill and Hillary Clinton know that you are against their national health care agenda, then I urge you to call the number on the screen and place your name on this petition, which I will send in your name to President Clinton. Here's what the petition says. I am strongly opposed to Hillary Clinton's National Health Security Act because, 1, it will restrict my freedom to choose my own doctor. 2, government bureaucrats will determine the priorities of my personal health needs. 3, Hillary's socialized medicine will radically increase my taxes. 4, Hillary's health plan forces me to financially support abortion and the health needs of persons who practice immoral lifestyles. 5, it is a serious invasion of my privacy because I will be required to carry a health security card, which results in my personal health problems and treatments being reported to a government data bank. 6, this plan denies me the personal choice of private health insurance coverage and forces me to join the government plan. And 7, Hillary's plan will destroy the high quality of American health care today by restricting the practice and the training of health specialists such as surgeons, internists, etc. While I encourage the continuing improvement of our private health system, I strongly oppose our nation moving toward socialized medicine. And here's where your name will go, right beside mine. When you call, you will also be able to leave a brief recorded message for President Clinton, which we will send to him, along with your petition. And when you call, you will also receive this free fact sheet on what Hillary Clinton's health plan will mean to you and to your family. The facts are right here. This is your chance to let your voice be heard. Don't miss out on this opportunity to let the President know that you are opposed to Hillary's health care plan.
The cost of the call is $1.95 per minute. The average call lasts 2 minutes. You must be 18 years of age or older to call. This program is sponsored by Liberty Alliance Incorporated, Lynchburg, Virginia.
I read in the paper where Larry had filed a lawsuit relative to matters that arose during his employment. And in that lawsuit, he mentioned about Clinton's affairs with a number of bimbos, and he called them by name. This was sensational. And in looking at the overall matter, it occurred to me that that particular part was not germane to the original lawsuit, or for the purpose of the lawsuit he had filed relative to his employment with the state. Having named the names of those people, and as time went on, the spin doctors went into overtime attempting to blacken and smear Larry Nichols' name, and they did a magnificent job in that project. They made him so that people didn't want to believe or understand anything that he had brought to their attention. And then the state policeman came forward here recently and told essentially the same story relative to the same people that Larry had literally put his total reputation on the line to bring to the attention of the American people relative to Clinton's shady background. These troopers have virtually said exactly. They have brought forward creditable evidence relative to these occurrences that Nichols had emphasized earlier. There is less evidence against 90% of the people on death row than these troopers have brought forth relative to Bill Clinton and his activities that Larry Nichols had disclosed earlier. These people are creditable witnesses, and they have completely exonerated Larry Nichols in his original statement. And all of the smearing that the spin doctors have done against that man ought to be put aside, and he should be looked upon as for the truth teller that he has proven to be.
Hello, my name's Larry Nichols. Some of you have read about me or seen me on TV, and I wanted to take this opportunity to explain to you, everyone that's listening, what the whole thing about me and what the issues Bill Clinton and I have fought over are about. Let me say that in the beginning, I went to work for Bill Clinton in 1988. I worked for the Arkansas Development Finance Authority. I hadn't been there long when I realized I was in the epicenter of his political machine, the way that he had held Arkansas at bay for 12 years. I felt uncomfortable there. The people felt uncomfortable with me. But from my tenure there, I was able to learn. I learned a whole lot about Bill, how he works, what he does. I also learned that he was running for president in 1992. As a matter of fact, I worked on the General Obligation Bond Program, which was to be the launching pad for his 1992 election. You need to know, we were running in 1992 not potentially to win or not specifically to win. We were running so that all of the girly issues would come out about Bill and he could get that out of his way, hoping in 1996 that would be old news and that would be his year. Well, things changed and didn't work out the way we had planned, and as you know now, Bill Clinton is president. Some of you may wonder what it's been like fighting Bill Clinton since 1990, actually since 88. He tried to destroy me in 1988. He did something that at the time people weren't as aware of as they are today. He knew I had information about him. He knew I could be damaging to his cause. So he destroyed my credibility. He roasted me left and right. The media was on me in Arkansas for months. Well, now today, that's old news. Anybody that has come out against Bill Clinton has received the same treatment. So when I used to feel bad, laying in bed at night thinking about how sorry an individual I am, I realized today that it wasn't me. The Pope could have known what I knew, and Bill Clinton and his machine would have destroyed them the same way. That's not why I'm here. I'm here to tell you about the future and what we've got coming. Bill Clinton is a liar. He lied about his draft. He lied about the women. He lied about his drug usage. He lied about the condition that Arkansas was in. He lied in his film about himself. Bill Clinton is a pathological liar. Never before has this country had a person like that as our commander-in-chief. You may also wonder what it's been like fighting Bill Clinton. People are dead in Arkansas. There are people that are dead. Yeah. When I started this, I knew that I might be one of the unsolved mysteries in Arkansas. There were boys on a railroad track. There were countless and countless people that mysteriously died that, as it turned out, had some connection to Bill Clinton. I believe this is going on today.
I would like an answer from Bill Clinton as to why the main conspirators, as far as I'm concerned, in the murder of my son and the cover-up of the murder of my son have been elevated in status by creating cushy jobs for them on the state level.
I told the truth then. I told the truth about what he was doing, the slush funds at ADFA, the using the troopers to take him to see the women, all of which now is born to be true. You see, when the troopers came out this last time, when Perry and Patterson came out, a lot of things happened in my life. The media had ridiculed me. Clinton's spin doctor team had done such a good job of damaging my reputation to where the media thought I was a nut. Well, now it turns out that everything I said has come to pass. Everything. I got tickled when the troopers came out. Media started coming to me and saying, well, boy, guess what? You were right. Clinton's people instantly went to work, and they started attacking me and saying that I had nothing to do with the troopers coming out and I knew nothing about their stories. Let me make it clear that the troopers came out on their own. What I did is I knew who they were talking about. The stories that they were talking about, even though they weren't mentioning names, were exactly the same stories that I had in my lawsuit. And I never will forget, one London publication talked to Clinton's people, and they said, no, he knew nothing. He knew nothing about any of this. One of the ladies that was talked about in the Spectator article from APNL, her name was Joe Jenkins. They said there is no way Larry Nichols knew Joe Jenkins. They went to this massive program to discredit me. I simply asked the reporter to go back to the lawsuit, the files in the federal case, and pull up the witness list. He did, and lo and behold, in 1990, Joe Jenkins was mentioned. Same address that she has today was mentioned in my lawsuit. So you see, time and time again, they've tried to discredit me. Time and time again, they've tried to knock down what I tried to say back then. And by the way, what I tried to say back then had very little to do with the women. I didn't care about the womanizing. I mean, I cared, but the important issues that I wanted to bring forth was what he was doing with state money, with the taxpayers' money, what he would do with your money once elected president. And you know what? That's coming to pass just as well. The media started calling me because of information that I had during the campaign about Vince and Hillary. That's right, Vince and Hillary had an affair. But they were involved in many business dealings as well. I said then that Vince Foster didn't kill himself. I don't think that Vince killed himself. I asked people that had forensic backgrounds, and I knew people that knew people with forensic experience. And what was being let out by the Park Police didn't add up to me. Over a month ago, I told a national television network reporter, senior reporter, that soon it would come out that the Vince Foster death was not a suicide, and that none of the things they alleged or none of the things they said could be true. He laughed at me to some degree. He called me just the other day when the report started coming out that how would a man shoot himself in the mouth, yet there would be no teeth missing, no gunpowder on the tongue, no residue inside the mouth, and the bullet didn't exit the brain. There was no exit hole, and yet nobody has found the bullet. Now, another thing that'll drive you crazy over the Foster death is the day after he dies, a special team goes into his office. Now, that team consisted of Nussbaum, his chief legal counsel, his personal secretary, Hillary Clinton's personal secretary, Patsy Thomason. Those four people ransacked Vince Foster's office virtually the night he died. They said it was for national security, to inspect it for national security. Well, not any of those people would have that much interaction with national security. Let me tell you specifically why they were there. Nussbaum was there and his personal secretary to scour the office and to look for anything that he might have relative to Whitewater. Also, anything he might have relative to a bond stock deal that Hillary and Vince were involved in. You see, prior to the governor's meeting in Tulsa, where they announced that they were not going under their new health care to singularly attack the drug pharmaceutical companies, it had been released that the pharmaceutical companies were the primary target of Hillary's health plan. As you can imagine, stock prices plummeted. Well, soon after the Tulsa announcement that they were not going to target pharmaceuticals, stock prices started soaring back up. Well, guess who had made an investment into those pharmaceuticals at their ebb when they were selling at their lowest? Hillary Clinton. And it was a part of a consortium made up of her, Vince Foster, and a few others. Now, everybody says, well, don't worry. It's not that big a deal because she only made, I think the report said, $12,000. Well, that's what Hillary made. How much do you think the Stevenses made or others? You see, that's insider trading, knowing that you have the White House that can manipulate a market and an industry and drive the prices down and then back off of that industry, which allows the prices to come back up. Look at who all made thousands and millions of dollars off that transaction. Well, I think it was because Vince knew about that and was a part of that, as he was a part of the Whitewater, as he was a part of Travelgate, as he had had a personal relationship with Hillary Clinton, that the team that went in makes sense. Nussbaum was there. His secretary was there to see if there was anything to do with Whitewater or the pharmaceutical stock sale or anything like that. Why on earth would Hillary's personal secretary be there? I mean, that makes no sense. What would she have to do with national security? She was there for one reason, and that was to check and see if there were any love notes or personal notes to Hillary from Vince. Patsy Thomason. Now, who is she? What was she there for? Patsy Thomason, you may not know, was a personal assistant to Dan Lester back in Arkansas before he went to jail for cocaine. He was a personal friend of Bill Clinton. She also, after Clinton was elected president, took over for a while the Arkansas Democratic Party. She was there to back clean up and make sure all of the pieces were put together. After they raided Vince's office, then started the lies. Let me share with you just a second in Arkansas what's normal. If you came to Arkansas and you were looking for any candidate's financial records relative to his campaign contributions, you'd find them at the Secretary of State's office. If you come to Arkansas, as has most media nationally, and look for Bill Clinton's records from 80 to 85, or the period when McDougal was involved with him, they just don't exist. They have just disappeared. You see, in Arkansas, that happens all the time. Anything they don't want you to have, it just disappears. And that's why I can say to you today that the records that we need to get to the truth on Whitewater have disappeared. They're shredding them. As a matter of fact, over a month ago, I had planned, prior to Dad taking a turn for the worse in his illness, I had planned to file a writ of mandamus asking the prosecutor, Mark Stodler, to look into conspiracy at the Rose Law Firm for destroying and shredding documents. Now, that was over a month ago that I had inside information that they were destroying documents and shredding papers relative to Whitewater. Guess what we found out just a day or two ago? They're shredding them today. The Washington Times did a piece, and they had inside people there at the firm. And they were destroying documents. You see, what they did then, they're doing today. Bill Clinton never changes. You say, well, golly, everybody knows now that he's shredding documents. So what? The way Bill Clinton looks at it is you can slap my hand and say I shouldn't have shredded documents. But that's quite a lot different than those documents being used and what's in them being shown to the world. About 2 weeks ago, more or less, there was a fire at the Worthing Bank building. And again, the Worthing Bank building owned by the Stevenses. And this fire was on the 14th floor, and supposedly it was started by a space heater. I want you to look at this footage and tell me if you think it was an accidental fire by a space heater. This is a CPA firm, and the documents that were in this office were important documents relative to Whitewater and to Madison.
One of the aspects of the investigation of Madison and Whitewater that I think has been neglected has been the involvement of Judge David Hale. Judge David Hale was indicted for conspiring to defraud the government of the United States out of money. His fellow conspirators are the President of the United States and his wife. David Hale has absolute evidence that the President of the United States and his wife have committed a felony. He offered to give that evidence to the Justice Department through the Deputy District Attorney, a man by the name of Jackson. Jackson informed Hale that he was not interested in prosecuting anyone else, that he only had a few more years until his retirement, and that he wasn't going to do anything to rock the boat. Jackson himself verified that he had told Hale's attorney exactly what he had said. And there was no additional interest indicated in that offer. This, to me, is absolutely outrageous for an offer of that type to be made and no interest at all be indicated by the district attorney in this jurisdiction.
See, I believe Bill Clinton violated every law on earth in Whitewater. So did Hillary. And I think it's going to be proven. Now, it's not going to be proven through Fisk, the special counsel that they've appointed. This has been done in Arkansas so many times until I'm sick of it. It was done to me. Imagine this. I file a lawsuit against Bill Clinton. I'm in front of a good judge, a judge that's honest. Well, all of a sudden, my case is transferred to another judge, a Clinton-appointed judge. The signature on the transfer wasn't even legible. Nobody knew who the special judge was that transferred the case. My case gets transferred to another judge, a Clinton-appointed judge. This happened to be during his gubernatorial campaign, and all of a sudden he quashes and he seals my case until after the gubernatorial election. What does a political campaign have to do with do right? Nothing. It does in Arkansas, and it does under Clinton law. He loaded up the court. Now, so that you'll know how that came out, he then transferred, once the election was over with, my case was transferred to another judge, Judge Perry Whitmore, and his last act before he retired was to unseal my case, dismiss it on grounds of statute of limitations for slander was 1 year, and then seal it back up. And they didn't tell any of the litigants, by the way. Well, the truth was my case was libel, not slander, and the statute of limitations was 3 years. Who would have ever heard of dismissing a case without telling the litigants? Here in Arkansas, that's normal practice, and it's going to be in Washington as well. You see, Bill Clinton has an evil society. It's a society built on incest. His lawyer friends, his legal buddies, they're all in positions, and they cover up everything. You see, it's the circle of power. And by the way, all during this time is when Fisk is doing his investigation into Clinton and Whitewater. It's a trumped-up deal. Do not believe anything coming out of the Justice Department or the special prosecutor or special counsel. It's a setup. And you say, well, tell me something about that. Well, let me give you a little insight. The day before Clinton announced that they were willing to use a special prosecutor, Janet Reno was on national TV saying she would not appoint a special counsel or a special prosecutor. She absolutely would not. The next morning, it comes out that the president wants them to. At 2 o'clock that afternoon, Janet Reno holds a press conference announcing that she is going to call for a special counsel or prosecutor. Wolf Blitzer, I believe is his name, with CNN stood up and said, Miss Reno, aren't you getting tired of being told what to do by the White House? And she looked at the American people and at him, and she said, sir, I've had no communication with the White House at all about this matter. And it was left to die there. Now think about that. Are you telling me that the day before she said they would not call for one, the next morning Clinton says they will, and then miraculously at 2 o'clock she calls a special press conference and announces that they are going to comply and call a special prosecutor? They lie. They lie in front of the media every day, and no one challenges it. Now, let me say this. She may have been telling one of the infamous Clinton half-truths. She may not personally have dealt with the White House. Probably Webb Hubbell had been in close communication with the White House, and the deal was worked out. So you see, it's all a lie. It's not going to work. There's only one thing that works. There's only one thing that gets the truth out about Whitewater, and that is a special hearing by the Senate and by the Congress. And that's why I'm talking to you today. You see, there's a lot of things coming that you don't know about. Let me give you some of them. The Arkansas Development Finance Authority, the place I work, the story I tried to get out in 1990, will dwarf Whitewater as far as power brokering, sleaze, filthy operation. I can even prove today that the chairman of the board of ADFA during the presidential campaign went around and called on businesses that they had made loans to and squeezed, literally twisted their arm to get them to make $5,000 contributions to Bill Clinton's campaign for president. That's right. He used a state office and went out and squeezed people that had loans to make contributions. You'll soon see more stories about Parkometer. Parkometer, the first company, the first loan ever made at Advent. Do you know who it was made to, other than Parkometer? Parkometer was owned by none other than Seth Ward, Webb Hubbell's father-in-law. Another interesting thing, the secretary-treasurer of that company was Webb Hubbell. Now, I say this is significant because, as you know, in our Whitewater story, we find out that Seth Ward is the man that McDougal went to when he could buy no more property. They go to Seth Ward, get him under a special arrangement to go out and acquire properties and to sell properties, and they tell him what kind of car to buy or drive. So you see, it's the same people doing the same things over and over and over. And I'll tell you something else that's coming out, and it's coming out hard, coming up fast, and that's MENA. Oh, yes. Since day one of the campaign, you've seen me on national TV not talk about MENA, and I'll not talk about it here, simply because it's a black hole. It's tough. But there is information coming out, new information coming out, that's going to open that whole window of sleaze up for the American people and Bill Clinton's potential exposure in it. Now, there's a lot of truth fixing to come out, a lot of truth coming out. He lied. Imagine this. He lied to those people at that church camp. He lied to them. Imagine this. He lied to the American people when he said he didn't smoke dope. Imagine this. When I held, you didn't even know about this. I'm going to show you something. I held a press conference back in 1990. When we talk about the circle of power being complete, let me show you what happens. I held a press conference in 1990 during the gubernatorial race between Sheffield Nelson and Bill Clinton. And I held it on the steps of the Arkansas Capitol. And there I mentioned the names of women. As a matter of fact, all the things you have today, most of them spawned from that very press conference. And every media in the state, every television station, newspaper, statewide newspaper, and statewide radio news organization were there with me. I read, issued copies of that press release to all. I went in and I gave a copy with the news standing beside me, with the cameraman standing beside me. I went in and I gave a copy, literally, to the governor's secretary. I would have given it to him if he'd have been there. Not a word of that came out anywhere in the media. Not a word. Now, when you wonder about Clinton's ability to suppress the media, look at that. I'm going to take you and kind of talk you through that experience on the Capitol steps. I want you to see where I held the press conference. As a matter of fact, if you will, let me take you there right now. It was right there on the steps by the pillars at 12 o'clock on September the 19th, 1990, that I held my press conference. All on the steps, it was full of media, the TV, the 3 networks that are here, statewide radio network, all of the newspaper reporters in the area. Everyone was there. When I got through with the press conference, I went through the center door, and I walked off with the camera crews with me, and I walked all the way to the end to the governor's office. And I left the press release right on the governor's secretary's desk. And you see, it's important that I did that. I wanted to show the people of Arkansas that they didn't have to be afraid. Everybody's always afraid of this building. They're afraid of what goes on inside here. People of Arkansas paid and bought that building. I paid for part of that building. And I felt it appropriate. I felt it my duty to go in and let Mr. Clinton know that I was not saying anything behind his back, which he does quite often, but I chose not to do that. I felt like anything I had to say, I would say in the light of day, and I would give him firsthand knowledge of what I was doing. Now, the other day, I had an interview with some people, and they asked me some questions. I want to make that available to you today. Some of the people that are editing this piece, there's some things I said then, some questions they had. Let's take just a moment to look at some cuts from that. Clinton plays rough. The attorney that I had who represented me on one of my suits was beaten and left for dead. They scared him so bad, he wouldn't even talk to me after we found him. And without getting into gory details, both elbows were dislocated, both collarbones were broken, his spleen and his bladder were ruptured with holes the size of $50 in them. He had been beaten, his nose, his sinus cavities were all crushed. He had been beaten by Clinton's people.
And it wasn't my intention ever to take pictures of Bill Clinton going in to see Jennifer Flowers. I could care less who Bill Clinton goes to see. But it just so happened she lived next door to me, and I mounted the camera there. I'm by no means the only one who knows that the governor was coming by there. I mean, that was an open secret, and that he was seeing Jennifer Flowers. But the reason I actually saw him go into her condominium, it wasn't that I was standing there looking out my peephole watching Jennifer Flowers' condominium. It had nothing to do with Bill Clinton. It's just that I got the camera. I had the camera before Jennifer Flowers moved in. And when she moved in, she just happened to have some very interesting house guests. And people are really afraid to speak up about that whole situation with her. But I'm by no means the only one who saw Bill Clinton at Quapaw Tower. He was a regular there at the building. I was hit almost immediately when they came in. They looked like state troopers, I'll say that. Yes, they asked me for the tape. But that's the way things had historically been done in Arkansas. It's just a small state, a one-party state, and what tends to happen in small states like that, I think, is the longer the person remains governor, that I think the greater the abuses are. And I think the abuses were very, very widespread under Bill Clinton. Whitewater is just, as a scandal, when they start really digging, they're really going to come up with some things. Whitewater is just, it's a scandal, but if they really looked into the way the state was run under Bill Clinton, they would be, people in other states would be just amazed. I had been Jennifer Flowers' neighbor. I knew that Bill Clinton wasn't telling the truth about that. Bill Clinton, I think, would do just about anything to save his political hide. I wasn't afraid of Bill Clinton. I'm still not, even with all that's happened.
My father was murdered September 26th. He was shot 5 times, once in the leg, once in the arm, 3 times in the chest. He was killed at Chenal Parkway and Highway 10, right on the Little Rock City limits. Someone pulled aside alongside of him and started shooting at him. My father had a file on Bill Clinton's infidelity and his affairs that ran from approximately 82, 83 to somewhere between till about 90 to 91. The file consisted of pictures, time, dates, places of where Bill Clinton was at, where Roger Clinton was at, the type of drug use that Bill Clinton and Roger Clinton were involved in. I actually saw several of the pictures. One was as they were exiting the Quapaw Quarter Apartments, Quapaw Towers. I was with my father when he took this particular picture. I was the only person that would ever go with him when he would do his private investigative work. And I remember 4 to 5 times that I was with him, and that's what he was keying on. I'd been with him at the Quapaw Quarter several times, at several other apartment complexes, and all of them did involve Bill Clinton and or Roger Clinton. I saw Clinton with a lot of different women, a lot of different types, sizes, shapes, colors. I saw him with everything from Asian women to American women. Roger Clinton, Bill Clinton, and several of their other associates would use drugs. And it was just, I was just like, wow. It was more neat than anything else that, somebody that is this famous, this bigwig can get away with this, and guys that make $18,000 a year can't get away with it. It just blew my mind. I believe my father was assassinated because he was the one link that could actually close everything and completely shut Clinton down. If I could come up with a file, Bill Clinton would not be our president right now. I feel that Bill Clinton had my father killed to save his political career.
Well, I say to all of you watching this film or this tape, don't be afraid anymore. People are starting to tell the truth. And only the truth's going to set us free. Some of you right now work for him. Some of you work for the Rose Law Firm or other people. And you're being forced to do something like I was. That's wrong. Come out and tell the truth. We've got to stop this man. I have a child, a 13-year-old child. I'm sure you do, or grandchildren. We've got to leave them a nation similar to the one and better than the one left to us. And Bill Clinton's deceit and his obsession for power destroys that future. There will be other troopers come forth to back up the 2 that have come out. Yep, there'll be other troopers coming out. And there will be other stories that will make your hair stand up about the man that we have president, the man that is our president. And I know a lot of you say, well, he wouldn't be president if it wasn't for the media. Well, no, that's not totally true. This conspiracy about the media is not totally true. Bill Clinton is a master at establishing the rules of the game for the media. He who speaks last wins. You going to believe me or your lying eyes? And he knows that the people and the public have short attention spans, and they won't remember things. And that brings me to the next issue. Election, 1996. Everybody says, well, we'll get him in 1996. All of the blunders, all of the Hairgate, the Travelgate, Vince Foster, all of this. No, you won't. Please look at my eyes. I'm telling you, no, you won't. A man that worked with him, that helped devise some of the formulas. And all he's got to do is lie just long enough and tell you that he won't raise your taxes, lie long enough and discredit the opposition strong enough to confuse those people, and he wins. You'll notice Bill Clinton has not been fighting Ross Perot. Now, you would think now that he's president, he wouldn't want ugly Ross Perot's head to rise up again and be a problem to him. 3-person race, Clinton wins. So Clinton's doing everything he can to support United We Stand and try to get him to run again because he knows that he'll win. No, it's all loaded against us, people. It's loaded against us. There's only one thing we can do, affirmative, that we can do. I've done all I can do. I don't have the world's hundreds and thousands of cameras beating at my door. I don't have spin doctors. I don't have script writers. I got one camera. I've got one chance. I've got one chance on earth with one camera, without a script, to try to get you to hear my warning and to help. You're the people that can win this thing for us before the damage is done and we can't turn it around. Get hold of your congressman. Get hold of your senators. Call for a special hearing. We're not asking for him to be hung. I'm not asking for him to be impeached. I'm not asking for anything other than a forum that gets the truth out. And if the truth clears his name, please let it clear it and stand behind him. But don't keep tarrying around. Don't keep waiting, because every day we wait, documents are being shredded. Every day we wait, people's lives are being threatened if they come out and tell the truth. And every day we wait, a little piece of our history and a little piece of our country is gone. I want you to remember Whitewater. I want you to remember Mena. I want you to remember the Arkansas Development Finance Authority. I want you to remember paper shredding at the Rose Law Firm, document shredding at the Rose Law Firm. I want you to remember Fisk is a front. It's an evil front designed to hide the truth. I want you to remember that there will be other troopers coming forward. I want you to remember that there will be more women coming out. I want you to remember all these things that I tell you today, because they're coming. And as each one of those come your way, as each one of those start getting into the national media, recognize when it's your turn, when it's your turn to stand up. Your turn to stand up may not be like mine. It may not be standing in front of a camera. It may not be working in a situation where I know some evidence that needs to be brought forth. All we got to do is get a congressional hearing, a Senate hearing. That's all we got to do. Call your congressman. Show this tape to people that can tell their congressman. Show this tape to your church. Come forward. This is our country. It's our turn to stand up.
Throughout the years, no matter what age group we find ourselves in, the one office that all of us universally look up to, irrespective of what party or political philosophy we espouse, is the presidency of the United States. That person is the leader of all of us, and we hold the office up to respect, along with the spouse of the president, naturally so. And by and large, through most of the history of this country, we've been privileged to have an occupant of the White House of whom we can truly say represents the values on which a nation was founded, of which we can truly be proud. Since the election of Bill Clinton in 1992, we Americans, with sadness, have learned week after week to have different stories come out from around the country pointing up the reality that we have in the White House today, a draft-dodging womanizer who is a pathological liar. It's a very dangerous thing for America and a dangerous thing for the world. What respect can other people have for America with this man and his wife and the values they espouse occupying the White House? The actions of Bill Clinton as governor of Arkansas make each of us sad to believe that a chief executive could have pulled the stunts that he did in terms of his personal life adultery, philanderings of a very significant and numerous nature. And aside from that, what appears to be a very significant conflict of interest on the part of the two of them, Bill and Hillary Clinton, as well as abuse of power of the chief executive of the office of governor. There's also some suggestions that since being elected as president, Bill Clinton has offered people a federal job if they are inclined not to tell the things they know about his background. The questions that arise out of the death of Mr. Foster just boggle us all in terms of what it means. What happened to the records that were found or were supposed to have been in Mr. Foster's office in the White House? What kind of nonsense is this? I can only, conclude that the responsible course for the House of Representatives to do is to introduce a resolution of impeachment against Bill Clinton and Janet Reno for high crimes and misdemeanors which they have committed in their performance so far in the office of presidency and the Attorney General's job in the President's cabinet. It is with sadness that I make this statement, because this action will introduce something that we Americans don't want to see in our political process. But we can't continue down the course of what we see unfolding before our eyes almost every week or almost every day. And the best thing for all of us is to get it out in the open and go forward, let the chips fall where they may. Under our Constitution, the House introduces a resolution of impeachment, and the U.S. Senate is a place where a trial takes place. And I think for the good of the country, the good of the peace and tranquility of the Western world, this is a course that Congress should take.
Right now, I want the undivided attention of every God-fearing American citizen. Please get your pencil in hand. I'm going to tell you what you as one person can do to demand that the American people be told the truth about Whitewater and Vince Foster's death. While governor of Arkansas, did Bill Clinton use taxpayers' money for the purpose of sexual liaisons? Did Bill Clinton funnel government funds into the hands of his friends in order to help his presidential campaign? Is the White House involved in a cover-up of Whitewater? If so, why? What was the reason for Vince Foster's untimely death? Was his death suicide or murder? Who were the 3 or 4 persons reported to have first entered Vince Foster's office under the pretense of national security? What was Hillary Clinton's secretary doing in Vince Foster's office? And what documents were she and the others looking for? Why did Hillary Clinton's law firm shred documents allegedly pertaining to Whitewater, and what secrets did these documents contain? Why are so many United States congressmen demanding that the Congress now begin its own investigation of the Whitewater affair and Vince Foster's untimely death? If you think the American public deserves an answer to each of these many questions raised by the Clinton-Whitewater affair, I urge you to call the number on the screen and place your name next to mine on a petition to the Majority Leader of the U.S. Senate, George Mitchell, and the Speaker of the House, Tom Foley. Here is what the petition says. As a concerned citizen and taxpayer, I join Dr. Jerry Falwell in demanding that Congress immediately begin full investigative hearings into the Bill and Hillary Clinton Whitewater affair and the untimely death of White House counsel Vince Foster. I urge Congress to seek answers to questions regarding alleged obstruction of justice, diversion of government-insured funds for personal and political use, murder, witness intimidation, and a subsequent White House cover-up of Whitewater facts. As the majority leaders in both houses of Congress, you have the authority and the constitutional responsibility to determine if the president has violated his oath of office and the laws of the land. Now here is where your name will appear next to mine, right there. This is your chance to let your voice be heard. I promise to send your petition directly to these two men to demand that the United States Congress immediately begin full-scale public hearings into the Whitewater matter. It is time the American public heard the truth on Whitewater. So please, help me bombard the Congress with these petitions, these citizen petitions. Call the number on the screen right now. Please, call now.
Call the number on the screen now. The cost of the call is $1.95 per minute. The average call lasts 2 minutes. You must be 18 years of age or older to call. Sponsored by Liberty Alliance Incorporated, Lynchburg, Virginia.